Do you believe the president is capable of taking our guns away? And if so, how would he do it?
I think presidents could definitely take our guns away. I mean, these guys are notorious badasses. You remember Harrison Ford in Air Force One? Get off my plane! Or Morgan Freeman in Deep Impact? Give me your guns, America. I am your president, and I need them to kill a meteor. Oh, Miss Daisy, I'd like to give you my gun.
You know, people think I'm racist, but what Hot Dog just did, that's a hate crime.
It was not good. It was not good, Hot Dog.
I was really dilly-dallying back there. I apologize.
You almost missed it. You only had 20 more minutes to get here.
I did miss it. I got so distracted by a young lady who turned around and saw me peeking through the curtain. You shut up!
I've never met two people who immediately had a rapport. Like, that was fantastic. Paul, thanks so much for coming back. It's a pleasure to see you.
It's a pleasure to be back. Thank you very much, Rick.
So the 4th season of the show premieres tonight. This show is in many ways a sort of late night take on the news, but you have puppets.
Yes, that's true.
That's true.
Yeah. Everything you're saying is dead on, Ricky.
That's the show, ladies and gentlemen. How did it come to puppets? Were puppets initially a part of the first pitch and how you would do it, or was that something that you sort of found after doing it a little bit that you wanted to work with puppets?
I like the idea that we were just going to be a news show. Like, you know what? We got to get some puppets in here. Puppets, I think, were the entire pitch when David Javerbaum, who was a producer on The Daily Show for many years, created the show, and Fusion had not yet launched as a network. It was one of their first shows. And he asked me if I would be interested in hosting the show that would be like a Meet the Press style roundtable discussion show of current events, and the panelists would all be puppets from the Henson Company. And I said, this sounds insane, and I want to do it. It just was such a weird idea, and I thought it would be a lot of fun. And then it turned out it was a lot of fun.
Are you do you keep up on current events, or were you excited to do a show that was about current events?
I was, yeah. I do keep up on current events, and I was I had never really done this before. This was not my comedy had never been about stuff that was happening in the world. It was always very personal and stories from my life and everything.
Not particularly topical. It was, yeah.
Only as topical as the human heart. But yeah, I didn't do topical material. And so I was excited at the idea to kind of dip my toe in that and see what it would be like. And it's really enjoyable. It's what I like about it is it's as opposed to other comedy, which is more evergreen, you can take time to develop ideas, sketches, whatever. The turnaround on this is so fast. And so it's a different it's like a different muscle, exercising a different muscle, and it's exciting. You know, it's exciting to be following what's happening day to day, and then seeing what we can turn into comedy, and having to do it very quickly.
Now we're in the midst of what some would argue is the craziest election season we've ever seen.
It's certainly the longest that I can ever remember. I don't remember a time now in my life when this election cycle was not happening. It just seems it started so early. It started so early, and it's, you know, on the one hand, for comedy, it's, oh, this is great. There's a lot of crazy characters. But on the other hand, as a human being, I don't want crazy characters running for president. You know what I mean? Like, because one of them might get elected president. That's terrifying.
Who at this point do you think is the craziest character?
Probably Ted Cruz.
Over Trump.
Over Trump. Trump is just an asshole, right? he's just like an asshole who loves himself and
somehow made it this far. It's kind of fun. It's fun to watch him speak after, like, especially after losing the Iowa caucus, where he was just like, I love Iowa, I love New Hampshire, we'll see you later.
That whole concession speech that he had to give in Iowa was beautiful, because this is a guy who cannot stand the idea of losing, who told everybody he was going to win this, and he was going to like breeze through, and like, no matter what I do, I'm always #1 in the polls. And then for him to lose that and then have to go and give, like, as best he could, a gracious concession speech. But he's still going to, like, when he said, you know what, I'm going to buy a farm here because I love it here. Like, he was dripping with sarcasm. Like, he couldn't help it.
I could still buy any farm that you guys have in this state.
I love it. You people are great. Oh, who wouldn't want to spend time with you? Like, he clearly hates them, right? And then the day after, like, Ted Cruz stole it. He cheated. He stole it, like, all day long. He's such an asshole. It's amazing. The idea galls him so much. Like even 24 hours he couldn't go. 24 hours. Like he couldn't you know what, if I play this right, I'll wait like a few days and then I'll say, hey, I just found out Ted Cruz cheated. The next day.
He went to bed that night, woke up and was like,
There's no way he slept. There's no way he slept that night.
He was just crafting the tweets.
Yeah, he was probably crafting and deleting tweets for a good 8 hours.
Just the thumb on send.
Yeah,
I
no. Too many curse words. I can't send that out.
So what is it about Cruz that makes him the sort of the weirdest of the bunch, the crazy weirdo of the bunch?
Well, he's an evangelical, which is that's very scary because people that interpret the Bible literally, you can't trust their decision making, because they have a whole other agenda on top of just the regular agenda that the average American has. Like they need Israel to be in place for the apocalypse. Like that's important because the Bible needs it to be there. And so who knows what will lead them to say, well, this is in danger of derailing the apocalypse story, so we have to make this decision now in order to preserve that story. You know what I mean? It's like when you're dealing with people who are treating a book that is basically suggested ideas on how to live a moral life, and they're treating it like it's a manual, that's a problem.
It's essentially if a president in 60 years was taking Game of Thrones literally and was performing as president like that.
Yes. So if you want to get mad at someone about religion, get mad at Ricky for saying that and not at me for what I said.
I was bailing you out a little bit.
I appreciate it.
Well, going back to Trump for just a second, hasn't he received the Christian evangelical vote, the support of Christian evangelicals at this point? Which is amazing.
Yeah.
He's somehow...
Because all he has to say is, I love the Bible. The Bible's great. Bible. He literally did this and said, Bible. They're like, oh, well, that's good enough for me. But I don't know that anyone challenged him on any kind of knowledge of the Bible.
Well, he backed out of the last debate. I mean, he's clearly not up for being challenged that much at all.
No. Well, also a great trait in a president, right?
No.
It's like, I don't like that lady. I'm not going there. That lady was mean to me. All right, why don't you run the world then?
Yeah, we'll see how he does with Merkel in Germany. So when you're dealing with an election cycle like this, where there are these kinds of crazies, and you're doing a kind of a late night comedy news show, is that for you like the best content possible, or do you ever find yourself wanting to get up there and almost be serious because it can be so crazy and you can't believe that people are actually eating out of the palm of some of these people's hands?
It's tough, and what we want to do is we want to have, through satire, we want to make some points and get people to think about things, but in a fun and pleasant way. You know, that's the point of satire, is that you're making jokes, but there's a point behind it. You know, and the guests that we have on, what we want to do is get people to say serious things, and we can joke around them, but that people have a message to get out, or they want people to think about something before they go to the polls. And so there's a certain responsibility with satire that I think is a wonderful thing, and a thing that I'm proud to now be a part of in a way that I haven't been for my previous career. But to be able to do that that's a big deal to me.
It's one of those things that I've always imagined is somewhat difficult for comedians who are specializing in topical humor, is how to oscillate and how to focus on telling a joke when something just becomes too much and too unfunny. Like, I make fun of everything with friends, but when it came to the sort of congressional hearing on Planned Parenthood, I was watching that hearing and being like, are you out of your mind? Like, I lost my shit.
Yeah.
And I would wonder how it works for you when you go into an episode and you have to talk about something or have a conversation about something that might have just been too infuriating for your own personal politics.
That honestly is the biggest challenge, is how do we make this funny? This is a horrible thing, and you have your own human reaction to it. And now how do we make it funny in a way that's genuinely funny? To me, it's like, it's not enough that you just make cheap shots at somebody's appearance or something like that. Like, anyone can do that, and that can be funny for sure, but I think to really make a point is a much more challenging thing. To make a point and be funny at the same time, that's the job. That's the thing to figure. That's always the nut to crack.
Do you find that the points that you want to make and a lot of the humor end up leaning a certain way politically, or do you
Absolutely
try to fall in the middle at all?
We always aim for the middle, and the idea is not so much that like you want it to be bases covered. Like, we made a joke about this side, now we made a joke about this side. It's really like, what is the most pressing thing that's a topic for ridicule? And unfortunately, it is on the right. It's a lot easier because these guys are so crazy and they are saying these insane things, and the way that the public is eating it up is really something to address and feels like the need to address. The other side of things on the left, there's plenty to talk about, but it's not as funny. You know what I mean?
It's
And
rational. It's mostly rational.
But there's flaws. All those candidates have flaws, and they're not fun flaws. And so it becomes much more challenging. And we always try to say, how can we do this? How can we make this fun and funny, but still make a point about Hillary having corporate ties, or Bernie Sanders being unelectable, or whatever? Whatever the perceived flaws of these candidates are. How do we make our point and make it funny?
I was going to say, I mean, that seems like the perfect example of how difficult it can be, is like Hillary's email scandal, which you could talk about. It's definitely legitimate to talk about it and have a conversation about it.
Yeah.
I don't know what's particularly funny about the email scandal other than the way how ravaging the right is when they talk about it, how crazy they get about it.
Exactly. This is a great example because somebody was trying to make the comparison between Hillary and Petraeus when Petraeus got fired.
Yeah.
And it's like, hey, how come if General Petraeus gets fired for sharing emails and Hillary doesn't? What's that double standard? He was having sex with a woman, and he was like, hey, check out these secrets I have access to. That's different than I'm going to save this on this hard drive. That's a totally different situation. And
how often do you think that takes place when it comes to men in power? Hey, check out these secrets I have access to. Will you have sex with me now?
100% of the time. 100% of the time, any dude that has access to classified information is like, hey, you want to see this?
It's similar to probably being a young comedian, right? You become a comedian to meet women in many ways. Like, hey, check out my jokes. Want to have sex with me now? It's like,
yeah, that's way less successful.
Exactly. You think it's less successful?
I would have killed for classified secrets when I was starting out in stand-up.
So when it comes to the puppets, how do you sort of separate who's going to have what opinion when you're talking to them? And I know you have specific characters. You have Dwayne Johnson, but do they end up Dwayne Johnson,
Dwayne Johnson, who's just a big rock.
I love it. Yeah. But do they end up sort of holding very similar?
That's how subtle the show is, guys. If you're worried that you're not going to get it, just tune in. It's going to be. You're going to get it, I promise. We have a big rock, and his name is Dwayne Johnson.
I want to meet the person who doesn't get that, though.
I want to see the person who gets it 2 years later, like, oh, right!
It's like sitting alone in a cafe somewhere.
Exactly. We do have these recurring characters on the show, and then we decided we definitely wanted to sharpen the personalities of them and have them be on different sides. So we have Star the Squirrel, who is a conservative Christian and just a flat-out racist and homophobe. And we have Armand Might, who's a little kangaroo rat, who is a film critic, but also a crazy liberal, just like off-the-wall liberal. Then we have like Dwayne Johnson is sort of the undecided voter. He's very passionate, but he cannot decide who he's going to vote for. And then we have Hot Dog, who's just a dumb prick.
An actor, model.
Actor, model, and hot dog. We just decided he would be the one person I get mad at. So anybody, the other puppets can say anything they want, any hateful thing, but anytime Hot Dog says anything, it infuriates me.
And you've had some pretty great guest cameos, or some pretty great guests on it. You had Patton Oswalt, Jack Black sang a theme song.
Yes,
right?
he did.
Do you have any great guests coming up for the next season?
We do. We had tomorrow night we'll see Cenk Uygur from Young Turks. We're trying to get more kind of people related to the news world and newsmakers. And Colin Hanks, who's a terrific actor. And then next week I believe we have Dr. Bassem Youssef, who is considered the what was called, I think Time Magazine called him one of the most influential people in the world. He's an Egyptian satirist who's called the Jon Stewart of Egypt. And Adam Conover from the TBS the True TV show Adam Ruins Everything, which is a terrific show about kind of debunking everyday things. But it's a very thoughtful show, and we have like a conversation about the criminal justice system and how forensic evidence is not an exact science, but we all assume that it is. We think that fingerprints are infallible, and it turns out they are not infallible at all. And people have been wrongfully imprisoned because of this evidence. So what we want to do is really allow our guests to speak more seriously about their stuff, and we'll take care of the jokes.
Well, moving into that, are you worried about booking newsmakers and people like that when the show is in many ways a comedy show and features puppets?
I mean, it's a hard sell for some people.
Yeah.
Like to get an actual elected official to come
talk.
talk.
I want Trump with the puppets.
Oh my God!
Do you think you could
Can I
ever
say
interview
this?
Trump?
Well, Trump, the fact that he calls in to meet the press drives me crazy. That any other person shows up there in person, and then they have him on the phone like it's sports talk or some shit, where it's like, yeah, this is I couldn't be bothered to come down to the studio. That drives me up the wall.
Isn't it kind of sports talk at this point, though? I mean, it does feel like to me when I watch MSNBC, when I watch cable news, I just feel like it's sports talk. The way that they talk about it, the way that their tone is, like the way he's going to step out there, he's going to really bring it today.
Oh,
Like,
absolutely. It's very much these guys, they thrive on this, and I think they forget sometimes that we're not all policy wonks or whatever. But I gotta say, I can get caught up in it when I'm watching it. But something like Meet the Press, there is a problem with the media, and the fact that we have this one very liberal channel and this one very conservative channel, the fact that there was a need for that or a perceived need for that, and that they're both thriving, that there's plenty of people that just only want to get, and I'm liberal, I watch MSNBC because I like the way they break things down. But it's like, I don't know where else to go because the rest of them are all horrible. You know what I mean? They're all horrible in their own way. Meet the Press used to be a show where, and I love when you see old clips of Meet the Press, where they're like, let's have a Meet the Press flashback, and it would be 5 reporters and 1 senator, right? And then the senator had to deal with these 5 reporters asking questions. Now, it's 1 reporter, 4 senators, and then when the senators go away, after they've said whatever they want to say, then the host joins with the other reporters, and then they talk about what happened.
It's all about access. It's all about access.
Yeah,
to
exactly.
power.
They don't want to ask them any truly tough questions because
They might not
they
come back.
might not come back. So they just talk about it amongst themselves. It's like, what's the point of this?
Yeah.
What are we doing?
Theater. It's just theater. I mean, it's not even theater.
Yeah.
It's just theater is a
It's
pretentious way of
television.
frame. It's just entertainment.
It's just
yeah.
television. Yeah.
And the why MSNBC was created, not to sort of give. There was no altruistic reason for bringing liberal news. It was like, oh, there's got to be a niche market here that we can tap into. There's an audience that's looking for this.
You know what though? I do feel that even on a base level, MSNBC, Fox News, there was somebody at some point that felt, I think we need to have this out there. I think there needs to be these voices are underrepresented. I want them out there. And then of course, once money gets into it, it becomes insane.
If you could interview one of the Republican presidential nominees, not even nominees, what are they right now? The guys in the primaries?
I guess they're candidates,
Candidates, excuse me. Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, I guess I just don't even think of them as candidates. Who would it be?
Of the current crop?
Of the current 27, who would it be?
I think John Kasich seems the most able to have a real conversation, and that you could get him off talking points to the degree where you could have a substantive discussion with him. But that's about it. I think that the days of reasonable, I mean, the Republican Party just doesn't seem to tolerate reasonable people anymore. And they've just they've really imploded in a weird way. And it's like a Frankenstein that they built a long time ago, and it's now turning on them, But the idea that like a guy like John Huntsman from who was running in 2012,
yeah.
was like a reasonable, conservative guy, but he committed the sin of being Obama's ambassador to China. So even though
For working in politics.
yeah, he's not for working for that guy. So even though he's not in the, it's not like he's in the cabinet or anything. He's a guy who knew Chinese, so he's over in China being the U.S. ambassador. And even though he was absolutely a conservative, he was like put off on an ice floe because it's like we can't have a guy who worked for Obama in any capacity be on the ticket, and it's a shame because I think the Republicans could have won. You know, I think it would have been a much more reasonable alternative, and they probably could have gotten a lot of undecided voters.
A lot of people say it's the sort of last dying gasps of a sort of dying machine. You know, it's
I
sort of
honestly don't know what's going to
death
happen.
rattle, one would say.
Well, but I mean, I don't know. I can't. What happens then if there's no? I mean, there's. I don't know. This is very scary.
Well, we talk about the absurdity of the Republicans of the GOP. Do you find any absurdities with the Democrats? One of them that I personally find, I'll throw this to you, is many people criticize Hillary for being too much of a politician, which is the weirdest criticism I've ever heard of a politician.
The idea that that there's not people don't want to admit that there is such a thing as sexism, and that some people in their critical assessment of Hillary Clinton are being sexist. That's not to say all people are, but they go so far in the other direction, like, no one's treating her in a sexist manner. That's absolutely, no one is doing that. It's like a lot of people are doing that. She's a career politician, and she's been doing this a long time. And so,
So is Bernie Sanders. He's a career politician. To be like, she's more of a politician. It's like, that's not a bad thing. You want your president to be a politician. That's what he has to do.
Yeah, it's not crazy. It's not a crazy thing.
He goes around the world in politics with other nations.
Yeah.
That's the thing.
This is the game and how it is played. And, you know, she's got corporate ties. She's just too. I like that she's too ambitious or whatever. People don't like. It's like what?
That lady's too ambitious.
Yeah. It's all the things that there's a few substantive things that you can attack her for, but to dismiss her entirely as someone who is unfit to be the president, I think is absurd.
Yeah.
But she's clearly an intelligent person who has had to deal with a lot of shit in her life, and she's still there. You know what I mean?
Lived in the White House, senator, secretary of state.
Yeah.
Pretty sure she's fit.
Horrible husband, right? But she still dealt with it, and she carried on, and she's taken so much shit from people, so much shit, and she's still hanging in there, and she's still doing it, and I think she's terrific. I would gladly vote for her.
I agree with that.
I would gladly vote for Hillary Clinton.
I agree with that 100%. I think we have some time for audience Q&A. Next,
We're going to start with a question from an online viewer. So,
Great.
Michael would like to know, if there were to be a musical about the GOP presidential campaigns, what would some songs be?
Wow! How fucking dare you?
Paul, go!
What? Let me tell you, the hardest thing in improv is making up songs. I was talking about this with some friends the other day, because I can get one rhyme out, and then it all falls apart. That's as far as I can get. It's so nerve-wracking. Okay, so...
Song title, maybe, if that's easier, rather than...
Yeah, sure. Give me a song title.
No, I was saying you come up with the title.
Oh, just the title?
Yeah, instead of having to sing
Do they
a whole
want just
song.
titles or songs? It's ambiguous, isn't it? Oh, I think some of the titles would be like, that crazy GOP.
Here come the crazies.
Here come the crazies.
And they sort of parade out from the side of the
Absolutely.
stage. Yeah. I think just Born on the 4th of July might be a song that there's as
They
well.
just do it at varying tempos
But
throughout
like
the whole
not
thing.
knowing that's a reference to a very liberal movie by Oliver Stone, that they would go for it.
Which is itself a reference to the song.
Born in the U.S.
Yankee Doodle Dandy.
Oh, is it?
Yes.
Oh, I did not. You're most likely absolutely right.
Are you from Canada?
Worse, Massachusetts.
I don't even know.
I don't know why that's worse. Next question.
How you doing, Mr. Tompkins?
Hello.
What did you think of Sarah Palin's reemergence in the public eye?
Who is it for? Like, I don't get who's like, oh, she's back, yay. It's so. Were you excited to see
Oh
her
my
again?
God, I watched that Today Show interview like 10 times, as well as her Trump endorsement. It was like the greatest piece of television.
That Trump endorsement. If we find out that she has had a cocaine addiction, I would not be surprised. I would not be, or some kind of speed, like something. There's something, I don't know if it's neurologically wrong with her, but she's a crazy person.
I hope to God that was word for word something she wrote or was in a prompter.
It was one long sentence, right? There was no punctuation and it never stopped.
And teachers and rollers and holy motors.
Well,
And
I remember like when she first burst on the scene at the Republican convention and she gave that speech, and I just thought, oh, this is a hateful person. And then as time, it was like one of the meanest speeches I'd ever seen in politics. And then as time went on, I'm like, oh no, she's mentally ill. Like there's something wrong with her.
next question.
Hi, thanks for being here. I love BoJack Horseman. I think
Thank
it's
you.
like the best comedy being produced right now. One of the best shows. But anyways, what's it like? A lot of TV right now, a lot of comedies kind of wrap themselves in cynicism and deal with issues like depression, that kind of thing. BoJack's no exception.
Mm-hmm.
But what's it like to play a character that's the opposite of that and is very anti-cynicism?
It's really enlightening because, and it's like helped me out in weird ways because Mr. Peanut Butter, who is an anthropomorphic golden retriever, at first he seems very phony because he's just happy all the time, and then you realize, oh no, he is just happy all the time. Then you find out he's got a darkness inside of him, and it was really educational to me. It's like, oh, I get it. No one's really happy all the time. It's impossible to be happy all the time, and the best you can do is try to be happy as much as you possibly can, and recognize that there is darkness in the world, which I think he kind of does. But I've really come to love that character very much, and I feel for him.
Next question. I think the next one is going to be our last.
Hi there.
Hello.
If you ran for president, who would your running mate be? Pick one of your puppets and then pick a real person.
Who would be my running mate if I ran for president? Puppet would be probably... How dare you? Never!
I go Dwayne.
I was thinking maybe Dwayne Johnson.
A running mate is someone that's not really on top of it.
That's right.
Just
Also,
put him in the room.
Vice president, it's sort of like his duties are largely ceremonial. I think he would look great on the ticket. He's very exciting. Name recognition, of course. And a real person, I don't know, people like Lin-Manuel Miranda. Let's say him. He's very popular right now.
Have you seen Hamilton?
Of course not. How am I going to see that?
That's true.
Like the hottest thing.
How are any of us
I
going
had
to see
a
it?
friend of mine who's also in New York, coincidentally, told me, oh yeah, my agent surprised me and gave me tickets to Hamilton, so I'm going tonight. I'm like, oh, my agent took a week to return an email.
You hear that, agent? Paul, so the show, it comes back tonight, right?
Yes, it does. No, it doesn't come back
It's
tonight.
tomorrow night.
Wait, no. What day is today?
Thursday.
Thursday. It comes back tonight, Ricky.
Yes. Yes.
I didn't get a lot of sleep, and I don't know where or who I am. No,
Worried
You
about
Shut Up
that.
returns tonight.
On Fusion.
10 p.m. Eastern or Pacific on Fusion. Mountain timers, you're on your own.
And what can we look forward to tonight?
Tonight we have Jake Uger and Colin Hanks. We have Star. We have Hot Dog. We have Armand. We have our very proprietary technology, the Clockmander in Chief, which is a mannequin with a clock on its neck that is counting down the days to the election. This is to represent our next president. So it's got a man's body and suit, but then we put a bra on it because the next president could be a woman. And then also, we realize the next president could be a person of color, so we put oven mitts over its hands to hide its white skin.
Very good.
Bases covered.
Very politically correct.
Thank you.
Paul, thank you so much for being here. Tonight, Fusion, 10 p.m. You Shut Up. Watch it. Paul, thank you.